Tonight's guest joined us in June to talk about the anniversary of Hurricane Agnes. Tonight, he joins us as part of our Weather WaterCooler series, where we interview prominent alumni of the department. Glenn Hurricane Schwartz recently retired after a long and distinguished career in television weather, most recently 25 plus years at NBC 10 in Philadelphia. Good to see you again, Glenn.
Hey, John, it's Penn State hat.
Thank you. Look at Penn State tie. All right, we match. So you grew up in Philly. Was there anyone in particular there who inspired you to get into meteorology?
Yeah, I grew up in the 50s, and back then it was kind of the golden age of TV weather in Philadelphia. Two of the top meteorologists in the whole country, Wally Canaan, who was my favorite, and Dr. Francis Davis, were AMS seal holders number 1 and 3. I mean, so I got the experience of the best. And we would study the weather in school and in the 5th grade. And I would go home and watch these guys and immediately think, I'd maybe like to do that one day.
Yeah, that's back in the day when the American Meteorological Society seal of approval was absolutely brand new. I know you didn't work in TV right out of college. Where did you get your start, and when did you first get into TV?
Yeah, I did intern in TV when I was at Penn State, my last 2 summers at the ABC station. And I was kind of intimidated out of even trying for TV because I was interning that last season with a guy named Jim O'Brien, who was not a meteorologist, but was like the greatest performer ever. And I said, I can't do that. So I applied to go to the National Weather Service as a forecaster. I mean, that was my love, was forecasting. And they had a hiring freeze at the time. So my only choices were AccuWeather at State College or the South Pole.
Oh.
Yeah. So I chose, it's cold enough at State College.
The warmer of the two.
Right. So I stayed there for a year and a half.
Okay. And then your first TV job was where?
I got discovered in Atlanta in 1979. I finally got into the government, the National Hurricane Center in Miami, and then National Weather Service in Atlanta. And I was kind of the spokesman. So the one station that didn't have a meteorologist sent a camera crew out to interview me every time there was a big weather story. And there was a Hurricane Frederick, about to hit the coast and come up toward Atlanta. They came on and interviewed me live at the top of the 11. And the next morning, news director called me up and asked me if I was interested in a career in TV.
So I know you worked at the Weather Channel when it was in its early years. Talk a little about what that experience was like. And is that where you got the nickname Hurricane, or did that come later?
Well, it was what I did at the Weather Channel that eventually led to the nickname. John Coleman offered me a job near the beginning of it, but I was happy at my station in Atlanta, and it was a real good station. I then went to Cincinnati, and then once I lost that job, I came back to Atlanta to work at the Weather Channel. And that's where I started working on a documentary on hurricanes, and I talked them into letting me with a photographer, borrow a station wagon and drive down to the coast and film the hurricane. This is the original hat. It's still dirty that I wore for the Weather Channel. So I became the first storm chaser down there. Up until that time, they had never gone outside to actually film the weather.
Okay.
It was always maps, satellite maps, surface maps.
So you started at NBC 10 in Philadelphia in 1995. That's when you adopted your signature bow tie. What's the story there?
Yeah, well, actually, I didn't adopt it. I was pretty much ordered into it. That was one of the conditions of employment. The news director there knew about my nickname that I had gotten in New York City after showing video of me chasing the hurricanes for the Weather Channel on TV, and the anchor just gave me that nickname. And the news director also said, I want you to wear bow ties. And the bottom line is, you're a scientist. What's wrong with looking like one? So it totally made sense to me. My earlier career, I had a full beard because I wanted to look older. And once I'm in my 40s, I don't need to look older anymore. So now I didn't have an identity. I wasn't the guy with the beard. Now I'm the guy with the bow tie, which sets me apart from others. And that's one of the things in TV. It's important. It's for people to know who you are.
Yeah. Some of our viewers know that you and I wrote the Philadelphia area weather book, but you also recently published your own fictional work about weather and climate. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, that's a poster, for example, from one of my book signings that was going gangbusters until COVID hit and cut everything off. But the book it's called The Weather Maker. It's a novel about a TV meteorologist who discovers he can control the weather. And then I take that assumption and what would happen if? So I guess call it speculative fiction. And so I wanted to get the science right. And I had it checked out by some of the top climate scientists in the world. And that's the motto. The story is fiction, the science is real.
We're pretty much out of time, Glenn. Just briefly, what's retirement look like for you? What lies ahead?
Well, I want to get more into the climate issues, and whether it's podcasts or internet things or TV things, or these books made into movies, I'm not sure yet, but I'm just headed in that direction as opposed to daily forecasting.
Okay. Glenn Hurricane Schwartz, recently retired from NBC 10 in Philadelphia. Thanks very much, Glenn, for joining us.
All right. Well, it's great to talk to you, John.
And we will be back in a moment with more.